2011 marks the bicentennial year of Missouri's most famous artist.
Fox 4 photojournalist Phil Maslin shows us how George Caleb Bingham's vision gave us a clear picture of our roots and history.
It was another time, the end of an era when men were slaves and freedom faltered. Economies and ideals were conflicted, enraged against themselves in the bitter enmity of civil war. That strife, reflected in this piece called Martial Law, was one of the last great narrative scenes painted by Missouri artist George Caleb Bingham.
The tack we took on this exhibition was to lay the artwork over a history of early Missouri as seen through the eyes and the brush of George Caleb Bingham.
Born in Virginia, his family moved west to the Boonslick area of Missouri and the town of Franklin, where the Santa Fe Trail began. Artist Chester Harding introduced young Caleb to portraiture. Harding was painting famed explorer Daniel Boone there at the Bingham Inn and left his young assistant with paints and brushes. With no formal training, Bingham started out as a portrait painter in the mid-1830s. Many famous Missourians are depicted in those portraits. They were his bread and butter, but his real acclaim came from his paintings of the West.
Bingham's river paintings really brought him to the attention of the national artistic audience. They depict really fascinating scenes of river life. Many of his river scenes show sort of a quieter river travel of flatboats and keelboats and even canoes.
It was important to Bingham that his art teach the future generations what it was like to live during his era.
Bingham always had a studio at Arrow Rock. Many of his paintings remind you of that area, but they are not specific to location. Being a studio painter, he moved about with studios in New York, Pennsylvania, and St. Louis. He called Independence home for about 5 years and resided in Kansas City as well.
He took the places and the people that he knew best and used them to create his compositions.
Bingham preserved a collection of 100 or so drawings, now held in trust for the people of Missouri, and they can be seen on display at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art.
He would take the figures that he created in his drawings and use them many times over in his paintings. So you can see many of the same figures popping up in different paintings and in different places. Some of his paintings have 50 or so faces in them.
Bingham was a serious politician and held a number of public positions.
What's interesting about Bingham's political paintings is they actually are very supportive of the democratic process.
Bingham often depicted his political opponents in some of his paintings. Erastus Sappington is depicted as the primary speaker here. You can see Meredith Miles Marmaduke, the governor, sitting behind the speaker, and Bingham with a tablet. He expressed his views through interesting details, like the two dogs interpreted as two parties sizing each other up for a fight.
Bingham was very much a Union man, but ironically one of his probably most famous enemies in his entire life was General Thomas Ewing. The painting he did was called Martial Law.
He depicts Ewing on horseback, leading the raid on a family farm.
Families were forced from their homes, and this absolutely enraged Bingham.
We can thank Bingham for giving us an image of life in the West that otherwise might not have been known.
That was Fox 4 photojournalist Phil Maslin reporting. The Bingham exhibit at Truman ends next Thursday. The Sketches exhibit at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art ends in October.